Hello, my name is Jamie and welcome to this tutorial. This is part 2 of the short film series, following on from modelling a vase last time. And today we're going to take a look at modelling and texturing a flower. So the first thing we're going to do is we'll start off by modelling the stem, and then model a bit of pollen at the top, and we'll add some petals around the actual flower as well. So to start off by doing that, we'll get rid of the cube. Actually, I'll start my screencast keys. So we'll get rid of the cube with X and delete, and then Shift A to add in a cylinder. And then on the left here in the tool panel, you can press T to toggle that on and off if yours isn't showing. I'm going to change the vertices here to 8, and I'll just bring the radius down quite low to about there. So we've got the sort of start of a stem object there. So then we'll tab into edit mode, and we just want to make a little cup shape at the top for where the petals will be. So I'm just in the side view and just toggling into wireframe mode with Z, and then B for box select to select the vertices at the top. Then I'm going to E for extrude, bring that up, probably about that far, and then S to scale it, and then I'll hit S to scale it again. I don't know what happened there, but I just right click to cancel that and start the scaling again. Probably about there. And then I'm going to hit Control R, which is the loop cut tool, and I'm just going to left click and right click to set that to default, and then I'll scale that up, bring it down a bit, maybe scale it in a bit, just so it's this cup shape that will hold the rest of the flower. Now the top of that is just a plane, just a single face, sorry, because with the inclusion of B-Mesh in Blender we can now have a face with any amount of edges to it, which is cool, but that's not what we want for this. So I'll go Control Tab, change to face mode. I'm gonna just delete that face, and then go back to edge mode. Alt right click on here. That doesn't come up in the screencast keys, so I'm alt right clicking on an edge, and that's gonna select the whole loop for me. And then I'm gonna hit E, and then I'm gonna right click straight away to set that to where it is. Scale it in a bit, not much, and then left click to confirm that, E to extrude again, and right click. Then I'm just going to grab the blue Z handle and then scale that in a bit there, so it's just in there. So that will contain the flower. Might be looking a bit big at the moment, so I'm just going to select in wireframe mode, select all of that, scale it down a bit, bring it down. That's a bit better. Okay, so to create the pollen next, I'm going to go in object mode. Make sure you tab to go into object mode. Shift A, create a UV sphere, and I'm just going to go to 16 segments. Then I'm going to bring it up, scale it down to about there. I want it to be bigger than the actual cup, because this is what's going to sort of connect where the petals will come in, and come in sort of just underneath the pollen. So we want this sphere to be not extremely rounded, because if we did it really small like that, it would have this really bulgy thing like an eyeball. But that's not what we want, so I'll just undo that. So I want that much of the sphere to be coming up over the top. So inside view, tab into edit mode, Z for wireframe, and then I'm just going to box select with B again, X to delete those vertices, and then I'll alt right click to select that bottom ring, and S to scale in. So then it's almost a complete piece on its own. So next we're going to create the petals. That'll be quite easy. So we'll just go into top view with 7 on the numpad, hit Shift A and create a plane. And then I'm going to want to bring that up just above the flower. And then tab into edit mode. I'm going to go wireframe just so I can see everything that's going on. And I'll select the whole plane, move it just straight up and try to keep it aligned there for now. So what we'll do is in object mode select the stem and rotate it. Okay, so I'll right click to cancel that. I'm going to hit R Y 22.5. No, R Z 22.5, and that just creates a straight edge here that we can sort of see. Okay, that's 1/8 of the diameter of the plant, so I can then create 8 petals that will each fit into a segment there. So back into edit mode, we'll select these 2 edges, scale them down, and then bring them into about there. These 2 edges and scale them up. And I probably want to bring them out a bit, depending on sort of how far out you want the petals to be on your flower. So about there. And I'm going to scale these up a bit, just so it's sort of about almost to the width there that we'd just decided upon. Then I'm going to hit Control R and scroll up on my mouse wheel to increase the number of cuts, and then left click. That just gives me a bit more to work with, so I can smooth things out. So I'm going to hit S then X, bring that out a bit, S then X, and then I'm going to hit Control R, bring that up to 3, and then I'm just going to manually move these just to make it look a bit rounded. And at the moment we've just got this flat thing going on, which is not how petals are. So I'll Alt right click on that edge there, and then Alt Shift right click and bring these sides up, then Alt Shift right click, Alt Shift right click, and I'm going to bring those down a little bit, just a bit of a ridge. And I'll Control R to bring in a couple more edges here, and after left clicking you can drag something in and then left click to confirm that. Then I'm going to bring up this one a little bit more just to create a bit more of a ridge, and then from the side rotate that a bit and just create a bit of shape to the petal. Let's have a look. So I might bring these 2 edges up a bit, bring this down a bit, and bring these 3 vertices up a bit, and just a bit of a fun shape at the top there. And I'll bring these up and scale them in a bit. Do the same here a bit. Because you can pretty much do any sort of shape of flower petal that you like, and it will look good. So we've got that on your side. It's looking a bit square, so I might bring these down in the Y a bit, so it's a leafy shape, and then a lip there, and that's okay. So that will do for the the petal. Last thing we want to do is hit A to select all, then E to extrude, and we're just going to extrude it back just a little bit, just so there's a little bit of thickness to it. And then we'll do some textures. So in order to texture the petal, I'm going to use a petal texture. And in order to use a external image as a texture, I need to unwrap the object. So in the top view, because it's a fairly flat object, I'm just going to select everything with A, hit U, and then go to unwrap. And that allows us to use the image as a texture. So we'll then go into, actually we'll drag open another window here and just keep this here so we can see what's going on. And change this to a UV image editor, and then go image, open image, and find where your petal texture is. I'll put a link in the description for where you can get that from. And then that's just a picture of a petal that I found in the garden, and I cut out the background from it. And I've brightened it up a bit so it's a bit nicer. So then if we, over in this window, if we just hit A to select the whole petal, it's not done what I wanted it to do, so I'm going to go unwrap, project from view, and then we can go to the petal texture, and there we go. So we've got the petal on the petal. We can then edit this to sort of, I'm just going to stretch out this shape here because this is just the UVs. I'm going to hit O for proportional fall off. I'm going to scroll my wheel in a bit. So now I can start manipulating that. The first thing I'll do is scale it up so it almost fits. And then just using that proportional fall off, I'll just stretch this out a bit more. So the more of the image we can use for the actual texture, the more detail you'll get on the petal itself. And then bring that down a bit and just stretch out the inside bits as well, because we're basically mapping this part of the texture here will be mapped onto this face here. So the bigger you can make the face on the image in this stage, then the more of the texture you're going to get, and the better it'll look. So that'll do for that. Just a basic texture unwrapped onto an object. And to see that working, we can just left click this triangle here again and drag that to the left to collapse that window down. And then I'll go to texture view, and you can see that the textures on the object looks a bit crappy because it's very polygonal, I think is the word. It's very faceted. So if I go into edit mode with everything selected by using A, hit W, shade smooth, so things look a bit smoother. And if you want with the object selected, you can go Control 2, and we just got this nice petal shape with some petal details on it. So yeah, the Control 2 adds in a subsurf modifier with 2 subdivisions, which just smooths things out a bit. And we'll just change the material on it so that it actually renders like this, because at the moment, I'll just move the camera in. If we try to render, it's just going to come up grey, even though we've mapped that texture onto it. Because all we've actually done is told the UVs where to be when there's an image. But the image isn't actually on the model, you have to do that through this. So I'm just going to set the diffuse to white with an intensity of 1. I'll set the specular to like a tiny bit, 0.016 there. And then here in the texture panel, I'll hit new, and then go image or movie, and then we can select petal bright here. Make sure you set the coordinates to UV. Color and everything else is fine. And so now we've got that petal texture on there when we render. The lighting's not very good at the moment, so it's not the best looking thing, but we've got the petal. What we need to do now is duplicate it with an array, because now that we've unwrapped, textured, and modeled and everything, the final stage is, for the petal at least, is to create an array. And what we want to happen is we want the array to duplicate the object and rotate it around here, so that we don't have to do it manually, which would be quite tedious. So I know I want 8 petals, and they're all in the wrong place at the moment. So what we're going to do is make sure your cursor's at the center of the world, and if it's not, then you can go Shift S and cursor to center. Go Shift A, add in an empty, just a plain axis empty is fine. Select the object again, and on the array modifier, which is this one, as you can see it's called array, counts 8, turn off relative offset, turn on object offset, and then select the empty. And you'll see that that's not working as intended. In order to fix that, because we don't want that to go down like that, we'll just go object, transform, and then we want the origin to 3D cursor. So now that's not moving anywhere. And then we can just select the empty, go into top view, and just rotate with R, and just keep rotating until we get about where we want it to be. And you can see in the bottom left of the window there's an amount of everything that's been rotated, and it's 45. So I'm going to left click at 45. If yours hasn't come up like that, then you can just hit R, type 45 on your numpad and hit enter to get that exact number in. So now we've got a flower with 8 petals. So what we need to do now, just to fix where these things are intersecting, is go into the top view, tab into edit mode, and you can still see where everything is. So I'll just go into a wireframe, box select these vertices, box select these vertices, scale them in a bit until it's sort of about there, and then I'll do the same down the bottom, and I might just box select the whole bottom and scale until that looks about right. Now would be a good time to select linked is L, and that selects the whole object there. And I'm going to rotate that down to fit into the flower. And I don't think that really needs to move much more, although I might, because it's pointing up quite a bit. I'd rather a slightly flat flower, so I'm just going to rotate it back and bring it down a bit. Maybe rotate it up a little bit more and bring that up and out. So that looks okay. There's a little bit of a gap between the petals. I mean, there are various things you can do at this stage where you can keep tweaking it so that they're just touching like this, which is what I'll do. But you could also overlap the petals on purpose. So to do that, I might select the whole petal, and then in front of you I'll just rotate a bit. But you might need more or less petals. So if I add in an extra one, and then change this a bit, you can see you sort of get a slight overlap if I bring that back, so now I've got each petal slightly overlapping. So there's a lot of stuff you can do with this, but I'll just undo that, because I'm happy with just a basic flower like that. So that's the modeling. Now we just need to finish off the texturing. So we'll start off with the pollen. We'll set the shading to smooth, and then we'll add in a subdivision surface modifier with just one level. And then in the material panel, create a new material and make it sort of a mustardy yellow. So there's this darker yellow than you'd normally have. Doesn't need to be any specularity on that. And then we'll create a texture, and to get a sort of pollen-y effect we'll use the Veroni and the colour ramp. We'll switch over these two, change the alpha on the second one like that to 1, and like that. So then we'll just turn the intensity down a little bit so it's a little bit blurry. And we'll add in this second feature weight, and that adds just sort of an extra little circle around there. We'll reduce the size by about half. Oh. So it's a little bit smaller, and we'll turn the nabla down a bit as well. So that looks about good. We will set the geometry to normal and displace. Normal shall be 0.1, and displace will be 0.01. And if we check where the camera's pointing, we should be able to just do a quick render from there. You can see there's a little bit of texture to it. It's looking okay. We'll set the colour. We need to change that to 0.8, I think. That's not coming up very good, so I'll try 0.2. So yeah, it's yellow and it's got a funny texture on it. We can also, to improve that a little bit, in the top view, go into edit mode, select everything, and then project from view. Then we can select the mapping to UV, and we'll just move the camera into a slightly better position. So now we need to just adjust the size. I think 0.25 should be the right direction. Nope, that was the wrong direction. Okay, so we'll set it to 5 in each of these, and then we've got it back, and there's less stretching and stuff going on, so we've got that pollen-y pattern going on. If you want it to be smaller, the pollen, and we can change those values a bit more, so we've got lots of little bits of pollen. So it's a little bit customizable, which is good. So then we've just got to do the stem. Again, we'll set the shading to smooth, and we'll bring in a subdivision surface modifier. I think I did have a face on the bottom of there. Make sure you delete that, otherwise it looks a bit like a pin on the end there. So I'll just delete that to make it a bit easier. Alt right click on the on any edge going up and down, and then do Control E to mark seam, and then I'll hit A, U, and unwrap. And then we'll create the material. So a new material, I want it to be a sort of dark green. It's looking quite thick actually, that. stem. So we'll just select all of this and hit Alt S and just bring that in quite a bit. So it's a bit thinner. Might even bring that in a bit more. Oh, that's better. Needs a little bit of specularity, so about 0.1. And then we want to create some textures for it. The first one being wood. We want try and band noise, and you get this fun wiggly pattern. On the color ramp, we'll just set the alpha to 1 on there, and we'll move these in a bit closer, and then just bring them a bit closer to each other as well, as far as color goes. So it's just fairly, just a color variation like that. We'll set the noise size to about 0.2, just a bit. Turn the turbulence to, bring it down a little bit, I think. You can sort of get a bit of a preview, but sometimes it doesn't completely update very quickly. Bring the nabla down. We'll set that to UV. And we want it to affect the normal a little bit. 0.01. No, sorry, 0.07 is what I had. We'll set the color value to about half, and we'll set it to overlay. So if we render with the camera pointing in the right direction, again, so you see there's a bit of variation in the color of that. I'm just gonna Alt R to fix the rotation on that. So now we've got something that looks like that. See how there's that. Just thinking. If we set there, so you can see it's quite strong there. If I set that to mix, you can see a bit more clearly what's going on. I'll just go back to overlay and bring that down. But if you want to edit yourself, then that's an easier way to see a bit more detail. The lighting's pretty bad at the moment, so I'll just create a couple of hemis, I think, in the top view. Just all at energy 1. Just create a sort of a triangle to get everything lit. That's a bit better. It's looking a lot brighter than it should, so I'll change these to 0.5 and 0.5, and even this one as well. So let's brought it down a little bit. So you can see there's still some variation going on. What I want to do for that wood one, I actually want to bring the texture size, I think I was setting it to like 5 as well. Yeah, so you can see, I think in my final one I was going even higher, but currently it's sort of not quite how I intended it to be. It's sort of spiraling around, which might be an effect that you like, but what I want is not that. So I'll open up the UV image editor, select the stalk in the 3D window, and then A, and I'll just create a new image, and I'll rotate that by 90 degrees. That's typing 90 on the numpad and hitting enter. And then, so that's pointing slightly the other direction, so I'll change it to about a 45-degree angle. And that's pointing in the wrong direction again. We'll get there eventually. So now I'll select this in this view, R, and then 90 should. Yep, there we go. So it's going straight up and down, which is what I was looking for. going to set this to 20. So it's just this sort of a rough stem type thing going on. And then to add a bit more feeling to that, I mean, we can even bring these two colours to be a bit closer together as well, just to reduce the intensity of that, because it was getting quite intense. I'll bring this window back over just by left clicking on the little triangle in the little bottom corner. We'll add in a new texture, not that one, sorry. Select a new texture slot, add in a new texture. On clouds, I want a slight ramp again. Very similar to the other one on the wood. So we just want a bit of variation in the colour again. Size will bring down quite a bit, about there. We'll add in a bit of depth, just because it helps to have a bit extra depth. Bring down number a bit. Set coordinates to UV. Doesn't need to affect the colour a lot, so 0.5. And we can even add a tiny bit of normal as well, and make this one overlay as well. So then there's a bit more stuff going on there. We need to fix the noise, the size, sorry. So this just affects how it maps to everything. So yeah, we've got some noise to break up the straight up and down as well. So it looks like a slightly fuzzy stem without actually adding any hairs or anything in there. So you can play around with textures quite a lot to get some good effects. And I think that's the entire flower just about textured. Not bad. We'll bring that up. Rotate it down a bit so we can see. Yeah, so we've got the whole flower going on there. And we'll just go in and add in a quick 3-bone rig to allow us to control the flower and where it's facing. So to do that, I'll go Shift S, cursor to center. Keep doing that. Shift A to add in an armature, a single bone. And then tab to edit mode, so we're in the edit mode for the armature. We can select the bone like any other thing we would in an edit mode. And then I'll go into wireframe mode just so you can see. There is a circle top bit to the bone here. Select that, hit E to extrude, and then hit Z or Z to move just up and down in the Z axis. I'll move this up just to the base of the head of the flower, and then I'll extrude and hit Z again to create a sort of a top bone. We'll make sure we name these as well. We'll call this head, stem top, and stem bottom. Now to get the petals and the pollen going to follow the bone is nice and easy. I'll start with the pollen, so select the pollen object. Then first we have to select the bone, make sure we control tab in object mode, and then that changes it to pose mode down here. And you'll know you're in the pose mode because it's blue, got a blue outline when it's selected. So select the pollen, and then shift select a bone, the head bone. Control P, and then select parenting to bone. Make sure you click on it. And you'll see if I'll just go into object mode. Just hit A to deselect everything. Select the bone and rotate that, and you can see that the pollen piece is now following the bone whenever I rotate it. To get the petals to do the same is essentially the same thing, but you'll see if I do Control P, it's going to screw up like that because of the array. So to fix that, we'll select the petals, go to the array, and just hit apply, and then you'll see that it's what that's done is created actual geometry for each individual petal now, rather than all being affected, or rather than all being copies that are affected by the array modifier. So yeah, now they're all their own objects, so you can't change the shape of the flower anymore. And to get this stem, so we just want the top bit of the stem to follow the head, and the rest of it to follow the other two bones. To do that, we will create a armature modifier and set the object to armature. Make sure vertex groups is ticked, and then go to object data. And from a previous test, I've still got the groups that I had, but I'll recreate those. So tab into edit mode. I'm going to hit Z so I can box select through everything. So I'm going to hit B to box select, select the head of the flower, create a new vertex group, and just call it head, and then left click on assign, and then create, we'll select some more vertices down to about the middle. Make sure if you haven't got all these vertices down here, which you may not, because I did just do a test to make sure I had the rig working properly off camera, just to Control R in edit mode and scroll up on your mouse wheel, and you can create a bunch of segments for the stem. So okay, back into here. So I'll select these segments. I only added in an extra 4 or 5 segments. We got them selected. Plus to create a new vertex group, and I'll call it stem top, and then hit assign. And then I'll select the bottom half, including that middle one. Create a new vertex group, call it stem bottom, and hit assign. And now it should all be working. Yep. Now you see the top of it's looking a bit crappy. It just sort of turns like that, which isn't very good. So to fix that, we'll change the bone type to B bone, and then in the bone here, under deform, just open that up, set the segments to about 6, and you'll see that they've all twisted around, and it's even like that in just the default pose. You can use Alt-R to clear any rotations. To fix that, we need to select all the bones, make sure we display the axes, and you can see the top 2 axes are pointing this way, and on the bottom one the axes are pointing basically back towards the camera at the moment. So to fix that, I'll select the bottom bone, hit Control R, no sorry, we need to be in edit mode, so tab to go to edit mode, select the bottom one, Control R, and then we can just align it with the axes there, so that's -180, and then hit enter. So now all those axes are lined up. When I tab to go back into pose mode, you can see this is all squared off, and it's not all wonky again. So I can rotate the head bone, and what that does is it creates a nice curve where the stem is. And I'll go into object mode with just the armature selected. I'm going to move it into another layer. So now we've got a nice little sort of a daisy with a nice curved stem like that. Anytime you want to adjust where the flower is pointing, we can just go into this layer by shift clicking it, Control tab to pose mode, and rotate it around. face the camera. Set ourselves up for a nice little render. And there you have it. Hopefully you've learned a bit about modelling and texturing, and a little bit about how to set up a basic rig. If you've got any comments or questions, feel free to ask in the comment section. If you just want to say hello, feel free to say hello in the comment section. Please subscribe if you haven't already. I'll put links to my website, my Facebook and my Twitter in the description box. So I usually post updates when I'm working on a new video, so you know when to expect a new one. I'm getting them out weekly at the moment, which is pretty good. So hopefully we'll keep on that track, and soon we'll start getting this project to start coming together. We've got a few more objects to model, and then we'll start building a little scene out of everything. So good luck, and I will see you next time.